Jonathan Feigen from the Houston Chronicle, the Rockets reporter, joining us on the program. Jonathan, thanks for joining us. What did you see differently last night than you have in prior games with the Rockets against the Warriors?
Well, it was actually more like the prior games other than game one of Rockets versus Warriors, where the Rockets were very aggressive defensively, switching not just seamlessly, but kind of with a purpose to where they were disruptive defensively. And then that triggers so much more about their offense than when they were play after play, walking it down and sort of in a measured attack. That was more of what we saw in the regular season games, Rockets versus Warriors, and Rockets in the majority of their 65 wins. So they got kind of back to what they had been before and that they were not in game one.
How do you think morale is with the Rockets today?
Well, it's good, but can they be as desperate and urgent after a win as they were after a loss? Of course, it's very good. They feel like they're the team with the best record in the league this year. They were not thinking they were a speed bump on the way to the next Warriors coronation. And so they feel good about themselves that they can make this a good, tough series and have their chance to win it. But can they be as urgent and desperate as they were after a loss? I mean, this is a team that has not lost consecutive games since January, that hasn't lost consecutive games with Harden and Paul playing since December. And so they bounce back from a loss. We'll see how they bounce back, how they come back after a win.
The one thing I did notice, it felt like I thought they needed to speed up tempo just a little bit because they were getting burned with these, let me get something, a shot off with 2 seconds on the shot clock or 3 seconds or 1 second there, that get into the offense a little sooner. And I also think, as great as Harden and Paul are, when you have contributions, get other people involved instead of just standing around. It just makes you look, more formidable. I just don't know how much you can rely on P.J. Tucker or Trevor Ariza to have those kind of performances. Gordon, I wouldn't be surprised at, but the other guys, and that's my big concern with Houston. You're going to need somebody else to step up besides Harden and Chris Paul. How consistent do you think that other, the role players can be as we move on in this series?
Well, they don't have to be what they were last night. I mean, there was a career playoff high for P.J. Tucker. Between the two of them, what were they, 17 of 19 or 16 of 18? I mean, they're not going to have to do that, but Harden and Paul can shoot threes much, much better than they did. And the Rockets need to get Luc Mbah a Moute going again. He's obviously really struggling since coming back from the shoulder injury. The Rockets have things they can do better. As we thought about the Warriors after game one, about the Warriors, they don't have to have career nights as they did last night from P.J. Tucker and to a degree Trevor Ariza, because they have other things they can do better. The Rockets still, I mean, they went ISO every bit as much as they did in the first game. It was more Eric Gordon than it was in the first game and a little less James Harden, but there were the same number of ISO plays. In fact, I think they had one more last night. So they didn't really change up what they do. They did it, as you said, with more force. They did it faster.
Yeah.
They did it earlier in the shot clock. They did it in transition. And they can get that way if they're not getting stops. They do sometimes, take the ball out of the basket, walk it up, look things over. You can't do that all game. They have to get out more quickly so that when Harden and Paul go one-on-one and the defense reacts, now there's time for the pass and then the next pass. I mean, that said, last night, they really moved the ball. They had 2 more passes than they did in game one. Total. They are who they are, and they're fine with that. They believe in who they are.
Do you think they're going to win?
The series?
Yeah.
I wouldn't think that. I think I put it this way, since the preseason, the Rockets are the best team this season. The Warriors are among the best teams of any season. And so, you can't just now say, all right, they won that game. They win this series. I thought all along it would be a good, long series. It can go. They can even maybe get it back here for a Game 7, which is pretty close to a toss-up. But, until the champ is beat, they're the champs.
Do you have an MVP vote?
I don't vote any longer. I gave it up when some of the rules changed, and we influence salaries and player availability. We just have too much power. It went beyond an honor. So I gave up my vote. But
Wait.
I would have voted for Harden this year.
No, what rule specifically made you give up your vote?
Well, it's the combination where our salaries are now determined by where some players can finish. When you can get a supermax based on where you were in the, say, MVP voting or all NBA voting, well, let's say the team I'm covering wants to chase a free agent. If that free agent to be is somewhere in the MVP voting, his team can give him a different contract than if he is not. Now, all of a sudden, I got power to determine whether the team I cover can chase a certain free agent. It's not about the people that I cover and, I could have given you a nice honor that you would have liked. It's more about the business of the NBA that as media we're supposed to cover, not influence. And so I had an editor who sort of grandfathered me in for years. He would have rather we not vote all along, but, I always had. But when they made that change, I said, okay, you win. I'm giving up the vote. And I sent the NBA a note saying to remove me.
We've had James Harden on, and, he's can be very engaging. I don't know how he is to the local media. What kind of personality is James Harden?
Personalities are hard. I mean, the funny thing about James, and he and I have spoken about this, he is first a ball player. That's where he's happiest. He's happiest in the gym. He's happy talking basketball. On the rare chances that we actually do talk. We don't spend a lot of time talking, but we have on occasion. As far as he is to cover, and the guy, as he has in other ways that you can see, he has grown so much that, he's much more available. He's more forthright. It's got like his game and his sort of style in the spotlight. He's matured into it, and so he's gone from a tough guy to cover to a pretty good one. Always available, and that has developed in his years here. And so, I enjoy covering him. And I like it when he's particularly honest with us. Like, if you ask a dumb question, he'll give you a look. And I enjoy the few times a year we actually talk. That's the one thing that we've lost over the years in covering the NBA. If you go back to the 80s and 90s, where you just sit and talk to these guys a lot more than we do now. Now everything's a giant pack. And James is one of those that it would be good if there was more times to talk without a notebook, without a recorder. And because he's an interesting guy. He's good to talk to, but that's a rare thing in the NBA these days.
Has he studied the former greats, like scoring greats, to add to his game?
Well, some of them, most notably Kobe. Kobe was his hero, and he has studied. I mean, besides, a kid in Los Angeles who, Kobe, of course. Yeah. But he has studied that since. So that's the one that just jumps out at you. But some, not a ton. I don't know that, like, if I brought up Walt Frazier or something, if he would have a real feel for his style or what his style would be now or any of that kind of thing. But, he's sort of his generation. So he's studied the guys that he followed as he developed into the kind of player he is. So not just as a kid in Los Angeles, but in the years since. But I don't know that he goes all the way back to, he knows Oscar and his numbers. But has he looked at old tapes? I wouldn't think so.
Good stuff, Jonathan. We appreciate your time. Safe travels, and thanks for joining us.
Always good talking to you.
That's Jonathan Feigen. He covers the Rockets for the Houston Chronicle.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.